The town of Ashton was small and picturesque. It was the kind of place where time seemed to move a little slower, where secrets whispered through the wind. Nestled on Elm Street, among quaint bookshops and charming cafes, stood the Ashton Art Gallery. The gallery was a local treasure, home to a collection of paintings that spanned centuries and styles, but it was one painting in particular that drew both admiration and fear: the Weeping Lady. The gallery was quiet this evening. The only sounds were the ticking of an old clock and the soft hum of the overhead lights. Dust motes danced in the golden beams, illuminating the rich colors of the paintings on display. But in the heart of the gallery, hidden in a dimly lit corner, hung the Weeping Lady. Most visitors avoided her gaze, sensing a darkness that belied her beauty. The Weeping Lady was a portrait of a young woman. She was strikingly beautiful, with long flowing hair as black as night and skin as white as alabaster. But it was her eyes that held the viewer captive. They were a piercing green, filled with an almost tangible sadness. Her lips were slightly parted, as if about to speak, and a single tear traced a path down her cheek. The painting seemed to radiate a strange energy, a palpable aura of sorrow and despair. Those who dared to study it for too long often found themselves feeling uneasy, as if they were being watched by an unseen presence. The Weeping Lady was more than just a painting. She was a mystery, an enigma that whispered of tragedy and loss. Over the years, the Weeping Lady passed through the hands of many collectors. Each owner, it seemed, was met with a string of strange and unsettling occurrences. Whispers of the painting's curse echoed through the art world, painting a chilling picture of the painting's malevolent influence. Some claimed to hear soft sobs coming from the painting late at night, the mournful cries of a woman in despair. Others swore that the eyes of the Weeping Lady followed them around the room, her gaze filled with a haunting sadness. The most disturbing reports, however, spoke of tears appearing on the canvas, shimmering droplets of paint that seemed to materialize from thin air. These tears, it was said, were not of sorrow but of anger and vengeance. Collector's obsession. Mr. Harris, a wealthy art collector known for his discerning eye and even more for his skepticism, scoffed at these stories. He was a man of logic and reason, a firm believer in the tangible and the verifiable. To him, the stories surrounding the Weeping Lady were nothing more than superstitious nonsense, fabricated tales designed to inflate the value of an otherwise unremarkable painting. When the opportunity arose to acquire the Weeping Lady, Mr. Harris jumped at it. He dismissed the warnings of friends and colleagues, attributing their concerns to an overactive imagination. He had the painting installed in his grand study, convinced that its only effect would be to elevate his already impressive collection. The tears of the Weeping Lady. The first few weeks passed without incident. Mr. Harris took to spending hours in his study, admiring his latest acquisition. He studied the brushstrokes, the play of light and shadow, but he felt nothing beyond a detached appreciation for the artist's skill. Then, one night, as Mr. Harris sat reading beneath the dim glow of a lamp, a sound pierced the silence. It was a soft sob, choked and full of despair. He looked up, his gaze drawn to the painting across the room. The study was dark, illuminated only by the flickering light of the fireplace. And yet he could have sworn he saw a tear trace a path down the cheek of the Weeping Lady. He dismissed it as a trick of the light, a figment of his imagination. But as the nights passed, the sobbing grew louder, the tears on the canvas more frequent. The final brushstroke. One night, Mr. Harris awoke to a bone-chilling cold. He sat up in bed, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was dark, the only sound the steady ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he saw her. She stood at the foot of his bed, a spectral figure cloaked in shadow. Her green eyes glowed with an eerie light, and two trails of tears streamed down her pale face. Terror gripped him, rooting him to the spot. He tried to speak, to scream, but no sound escaped his lips. The weeping lady glided towards him, her sorrowful eyes boring into his soul. He wanted to look away, to break free from her gaze, but he found himself paralyzed, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to... Back to the shadows. The following morning, Mr. Harris was found dead in his bed, his face frozen in a mask of terror. The cause of death was a mystery, his heart seemingly having simply given out. The weeping lady was gone, vanished from the study wall. Some whispered that the painting was cursed, that it fed on the life force of its owners. Others claimed that Mr. Harris's skepticism had angered the spirit trapped within the canvas, leading to his untimely demise. Whatever the truth, the weeping lady resurfaced weeks later, abandoned on the steps of the Ashton Art Gallery. It now hangs back in its place of honor, its sad eyes gazing out at the gallery visitors. It seems to be waiting, biding its time for its next victim, a new soul to trap in its web of sorrow and despair. The weeping lady forever bound to the canvas, forever weeping,